So I just want to thank Billy Joel for taking the night off and letting us come. And we're going to make the best of it. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming. And away we go.
You're listening to Live on Four Legs, the live Pearl Jam podcast experience, featuring
Mr. Stone Gossard. Fucking Cameron in the truck. Mr. Boom Gasper. You can call me Al, you can call me Ed, you just fucking call me, why don't you?
Welcome to Live on Four Legs, the definitive live Pearl Jam podcast, and you're listening to this show. As we do every week, we take one Pearl Jam show from the live Pearl Jam catalog, and we break down the set list, and we talk about the songs, we talk about the era, and we talk about other storylines going into it. It is anything that a Pearl Jam fan would love and desire, and welcome everybody. Randy Sobel here, Chris Buckley over there. Hello, sir.
Hello. Hello, hello.
How goes?
It goes well. How goeseth it with you?
Goeseth it. It goeseth it pretty well, I suppose. We got an interesting one to cover today. Obviously, a couple weeks ago we did your first MSG show, and today we got another MSG show that both of us were at, and we're getting
the next one after
MSG.
it.
Yeah, this MSG series is coming down to the wire here. We got two more left, and it's both the 2016. So it's interesting because it's kind of, while you have night two that we were coming off of, you had a lot of really big things to talk about, big storylines. This is not going to be that kind of episode. I think that there's, while there's a lot of good things to talk about, I think that there's going to be a lot of things that we're just going to be like, yeah, that was... that was a Pearl Jam show, kind of.
Yeah, this show, I said this to you before, one of the main points here is that there are not a lot of points to make. One of the main things that we can talk about to start off here, as we always do before we really dive into the set list from front to back or from beginning to end, is the fact that this show is very strong. It is a very well-performed show. It's a good set. I'm not going to say it's a bad set. It's definitely not a bad set. It's not a mind-blowing set. It is I don't want to say run-of-the-mill. I feel like using that term with this band in any capacity it's
probably
a
not
bit of
fair.
an injustice.
No, right.
And it's not fair. And it was such a well-performed show. I remember leaving this show feeling like, thinking, they sounded so good. They really sounded on, and how can they follow that up night two? And, we'll get to that when we get to night two. But it was the kind of show where, looking back at it, you look through the set list, it's a very standard set list as far as, I would say maybe so once Lightning Bolt comes out, so maybe 2013 to now, 2018. Obviously we're in 2019, but the last show was last year, of course. So I would say it fits very well within the mold of shows that would be performed between 2013 and 2018. Yeah. There's nothing groundbreaking here. There's a couple cool little moments that we'll get to. There's quite unique cover, one and only time they've ever done it. That was one of the moments that stood out. There's a surprising moment, I think, that we both agreed upon, that we agree that we liked, that we'll get to. And listening back, I really forgot about. It had been so long since I listened to this bootleg all the way through that when I stumbled across this song again, it kind of reminded me. I was like, wow, that, you know what? I don't remember that being as good as it was, but it was very good. And it was one of the overall few moments that I really would want to make a point about. And outside of that, it is a pretty basic set list. There's nothing mind-blowing going on here, but again, the performance is solid, and it was a good show. It was a very good show for a set list that feels very much like they took the approach this night of, okay, yes, we're playing the Garden, so we want to be, play a pretty significant amount of time. This show clocks in at, I think, 2 hours and 51 minutes as far as the bootleg, at least. So they play it's a considerably long show. And there's a lot of hits. They repeat a lot of songs going into night 2. So in that regard, they are really playing, I think, a lot for the standard fan. There's a lot of, I think there's a certain mentality of, okay, there's going to be people here that are, it's not a collector show, if that makes sense. It's not a show for, for the serious collector. It's a very basic show to hit all of the bases, sprinkle a couple little fun things in there for the more, the harder, long, bigger fans. And, but there's nothing groundbreaking going on here in the show overall, but it's still good. That's what I'm trying to say. I kind of am putting a damper on it, but I'm not trying to. I'm just kind of laying it down here.
Yeah, my thing is with this show is that I think 2016 had a lot of expectations going into it.
Sure.
You have a couple nights before, you have Tenadelphia, and boy, was that mind blowing. And just to see that, like, knowing that you got that a couple of days before you're getting the Garden, you're like, oh shit, that's what they did in Philly. Imagine
right, and Philly got that, exactly.
Right, what could they do for the Garden? And you look at it, and it's really not fair to compare it, because the reason why they did 10 in Philly was because they raised the banner that said 10 consecutive sellouts in Philadelphia. So they had a reason to do it. But also, you had Greenville that year. A week later, a week after MSG, you had Binaural in Toronto. You had stuff like a couple of those other shows on that tour. There were some real deep cuts that were played, like Ghost and In the Moonlight in Tampa, and there were big things going on. So there were really high expectations going into New York, but also with high expectations and a big city, you sort of, there are newer fans that you do have to cater to in those aspects. And I think that this show is sort of a beginner level show. It has something, if you're, first couple shows in for a Pearl Jam fan, this is
perfect.
This is going to be pretty good for you, because you don't get stuff like Off He Goes and Footsteps every single show. But I was 15 shows deep at the time, and I had seen at least 2 new original songs at every single show, and this was the first show that I got nothing new at all. Aside from a Doobie Brothers cover, I had seen every single thing that had been played that night. So it was a little disappointing on that end, and I'll talk about how much of a spoiled brat I was as we go along the way. But before we get into all that, let's mention Patreon, because we got to get that in early, of course. If you're listening to this on Wednesday, yesterday was Patrons Day, and we did a little thing for our Patreon subscribers. If you're a Patreon subscriber and you haven't seen that, head on over there and check out what we did, because we made a bunch of announcements for 2020 and some end of the year kind of announcement stuff. So there's some really good stuff there. If you're interested in Evolution episodes, we just released for the patrons yesterday a Corduroy Evolution episode, and next week, for all you guys that aren't on Patreon, we're actually going to give you an Evolution episode as a regular episode, because it's Thanksgiving next week, and we wanted to do something a little special, something a little lighter for the holidays, so we wouldn't have to spend time editing and researching a big show around a holiday season. So if you like the Evolution episodes, there is Yellow Ledbetter that is for free on Spotify and Apple and all the regular podcast providers. But we also have Leash, we have Alive, we have State of Love and Trust, and the recently released Corduroy episodes, all on patreon.com. And to become a Patreon subscriber, you head over to patreon.com/liveon4legs, and you donate whatever you feel is necessary to the podcast. It is all up to your discretion, and we treat everybody the same. Everybody gets the same exclusive episodes. Everybody gets the same opportunities to come on the show, talk about your favorite show, or even if you don't want to come on the show, but you have a show in mind for us to do, we can do that too. That's not a problem. So, head on over to Patreon if that's something that you would like to do. Help out the podcast. It helps us out. And also, you get to do cool things. The first people that are invited into doing the experiments and getting on Evolution episodes are usually the Patreon people. So if that's something that you're interested in, hit us up. liveonfourlegs podcast at gmail.com and head on over to Patreon. So anything to add with that? I think I hit all the bases there.
You did. You just hit a home run. Touch them all.
Yep, like a Pete Alonso blast. The rookie of the year right there.
LFGM, baby.
Yeah. And also we have, continuing this week, we have all of the polls for the show of the decade. I think we're on 2014 right now, I believe. So remember to keep checking social media and keep voting. You guys have been participating. You guys have been awesome so far. We've got a lot of votes in, and the votes so far aren't that surprising. The shows that we thought were going to be voted heavily upon were voted heavily upon, and we're kind of, and this is in a couple of weeks when we get to the top 25 or top 30, that's where we're going to start making tough decisions there. So just remember, head on over to our social media pages on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram at Live on Four Legs Podcast or Pod, and find out the link. I think it's probably bit.ly/the year, whatever year we're doing, say 2013, 2014 PJ shows. So hit us up over there and vote and help us out like a democracy
Go
does.
Vote.
Yeah. All right. So MSG storylines going into this, we kind of mentioned expectations were pretty high. That
is something I should have mentioned. Yeah, that's a very important point.
Right, because this is middle of that tour where you hit all of the southeast places, all of Florida and the Carolinas, and around that time I believe they had to cancel the Raleigh show because of the bathroom ban in North Carolina, so that's worth mentioning there. There was all that, and again, this was my 15th show. And
this was my 9th show at this point.
Okay, so we're both pretty much, when you get into that range, you're both
I
pretty
think
much...
we're veterans.
We are veterans, yeah. We're not like looking at 1996 and saying, oh, well, I've been to 30 plus, but there are people that this was probably number 50 or number 60 or something.
But for
like
people
that.
our age, I think we're veterans at this point.
Yeah, I would say so, sure. So I had very high expectations. This was the first time in about almost 2 years that I had seen them. The last time being Memphis 2014. I believe you saw Global Citizens.
I did, which, if you even want to consider that
right,
a real Pearl Jam show. But yeah, so technically yes, but my previous show before that would have been Barclays Night 2, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So you got a couple of years since you've actually seen a full show. But I think at this point, at least for me, I've become a chaser. I have songs that are on my checklist,
sure,
and I have things that are just like, okay, now's the time where I need Brain J. Now's the time where I want a deep cut.
Still searching for that.
I know, me too.
Damn.
It's just, I hope it never gets away. That's just once would be fine.
It's been hanging around sets, but yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. And same with some of the binaural songs like Of the Girl. And
I've only got 2 binaural songs under my belt. It's brutal.
Yeah, that's really
and
tough.
Surprisingly, Grievance twice. One being at Night 2 of MSG in 2010, which we just did, and the other at Fenway Night 1 in 2016. But anyway.
Yeah, so again, chaser expectations are very high. I feel like Philly got 10, so maybe MSG could get a Fatal or an Other Side, or who knows what they can get.
I think there's a certain, we feel like there's a certain sense of entitlement almost at this point, given how these other shows have gone with Versus and 10, and we come into New York and everyone, I just remember the atmosphere at the pre-party Was that, what was it, the Madison Square Tavern, I believe, around the corner from the Garden. Both nights, actually, night 1 and night 2. Everyone just, I remember talking with everybody there. Shout out Last Exit. They played before the show, night 1. They had a little pre-party performance going on at the Madison Square Tavern upstairs.
Yes.
And it was awesome.
So
I remember that. It was so good.
I was there. That was the wish list party. Right?
It was indeed.
Yeah, I was there, and I was basically my friend. I was staying at a friend's place in the city, and I was basically homeless for the day. So I had like my charger, and like all I had on me was a hoodie and the poster that I had just waited in line for a couple hours, and I like went into a booth and I just laid there for like 2 hours, and they kept coming up to me. You sure you don't want anything? Do you want a drink? Do you want food? I'm like, no, I just want water. I want water. I don't want to watch the Mets game. That's all I wanted out of that.
That's code for Randy, move.
Exactly. So I had to end up calling my friend and being like, hey, can I go back to your apartment and just chill for a little while? Is there like a security guard that can give me a key or something like that? So I went back to his place and just hung out until, the show actually
there you go.
started. So I'd rather have had a better situation, a better time, but what can you do when you're homeless in the city, I suppose. It was
a great time. Yeah. Sorry.
So I've heard. But I did put in money to a raffle, and I didn't get to see what came of it. So I could have won, a vinyl or something like that. But hey, good on whoever did. So, yeah, I was by myself at this show. I was behind the stage.
So was I.
Okay, so we were pretty close in the same section, because there's really just one or two sections that are mainstays for the back of the stage there. I think I like being in the back there more than Barclays. I think that there's better sight views, I think.
Yeah, I could definitely. It's like burned in my brain. I definitely remember looking down on the stage and being able to see everything so clearly, and the screen was really big too. They did a very good job with the camera work for these shows, and finding the different moments on stage that helped bring the performance to life. So they did really a really good job of finding things that were important to show everyone, especially in the back. When you can't see the front of the stage, see Eddie's face,
right.
See any of their faces, really. So that was good.
Yeah.
It wasn't as bad. And I remember the bridge was like bouncing, because when you're behind the stage, you're on that chase bridge there,
right? Yeah.
In the Garden, and I remember it moving. Like, you could feel it. I could feel it.
Yeah.
I could feel it.
Oh yeah.
It really was like you really could feel it. I was with one of my friends, Anthony. We were sitting there, and I just remember like me and him like looking at each other the entire show, really, like all these great moments, because he hasn't been to like a ton of PJ shows, but he is a big fan. He knows a lot of the music and everything, so it wasn't like he was a first timer or needed to be explained like which song was which, etc. So
right.
But all these songs that he wanted to see and that I knew, obviously, so we just kept looking at each other, and it was, I think that really enhanced a lot of the experience, especially for a show at this point, like we've said, was not a deep cuts collector kind of a show. You got a lot of these moments where it's like you're just there. You really, for me, I know you're saying you're there by yourself. You're like chasing a lot of the songs.
Yeah, it's tougher when you're by yourself.
Yeah, it's definitely you don't have as many people, or there's not someone right next to you to kind of bask in the moment and enjoy it as much as you would with someone else. But I guess that was what I was experiencing, and it was nice, and just to be able to share the moment with a friend and to go through that. And it was really the kind of show where I think you just come to, it helped give me a different perspective, where you look at someone else reacting to the show and not just your own perception. It gives you like a different point of view of witnessing and appreciating how good they really are live.
Yeah, I'll
and
bring
everything.
something up with that. Yeah, it's not really a positive thing, but I will bring something up when it gets later into the set. So why don't we dive right in? And I think this again. I had a sour taste in my mouth about the show because just, for being a spoiled brat and not getting anything new, I left this kind of with the sourpuss on. This was sort of a redemption for me, and listening to the bootleg, I think that I grew to accept it a little more than I did that day. So I'm glad that I've come around to it, because a lot of people do say it is a sleeper MSG show. So why don't we get right into it? They take the stage to REM's "It Happened Today," which is really cool. That was a song that they covered, I want to say back in 2011, some point on the Canadian tour, like a Winnipeg or a Saskatoon or something like that. Edmonton. Yeah, I'm not sure, but cool to see them, take the stage to that. I think they were doing that a lot in 2016. So, par for the course. But you get right into the set, and right away they're doing the album version of "Go," where it's the little
which
jam.
I love.
Yeah, it's the little jam in the beginning. A single time where they did that, and I haven't listened to Greenville in a while, so I don't know if they actually did that in Greenville when they actually did verses. But I'm thinking to myself at this point, I'm like, oh, if they're doing this, maybe we're getting verses, or maybe we're getting something special like that. Again, spoiled brat territory there. Everything that I say about that was just me and my mindset of thinking at the time, and I've grown and changed as a Pearl Jam fan. But man, this was a great way to
I love that.
Show.
Yeah, I love it. I love it that they did this. It's so short, and I mean, the big picture, it's like, okay, who cares? But it was cool because you never you don't hear them do that. You know what I mean?
No, it's usually just the banana.
Exactly. You get the quiet little cymbal into the opening riff, and it was a unique way to start, because I love the song "Go" in general, and to begin it in this way, to get that full album experience and everything, it was just so cool. It was it was a great way to kick things off. If you're gonna go the high energy route, you're not going the long road release wash route. You're gonna go the go route, or something faster. This was a very cool way to break into things. Yeah, this was great.
And that should be mentioned, for most of the shows on this tour, they would open with something like a Corduroy or a Why Go, or I think they open even outside of the Tenadelphia show. I think they were opening with Once every other show. So, this was kind of the standard for this tour. So to get Go and just a little something extra on it that was, a throwback to the album, awesome. Loved it. It's probably going to end up being in my top 3 moments of the show. So, fantastic. Tight version of the song too. Really good stuff. Mm-hmm. We get into Mind Your Manners, Corduroy, Hail Hail, Given a Fly, all in a row here. What's your overall take on this early section? I thought it was a very solid perform section. I know you have something about Mind Your Manners being played second.
Yeah, so the main thing I would say, besides the Mind Your Manners point, is Ed's voice is not pristine to start by any means. I think it's taking him a little bit of time to get going, to get loosened up. He sounds like he's straining a bit in Go. In Given to Fly, even he sounds a little like he's reaching and trying to hit these notes with a lot of effort. Like he just hasn't really reached the point where he's comfortable just yet.
He's also not worrying about it too much, though. I think he's just he's soaking in the energy and soaking in the atmosphere that, if he's kind of having a down night, he's not barred down by it. He's not thinking about it at all. That's my take.
Definitely.
From it, I suppose.
Yeah. And I think there is a certain, I know these guys have played every, any place imaginable, and they've played for, all these different crowds for the last 30 years, but you're playing the Garden. I think there's a sense of like, okay, a little nerves, there could be some nerves there. You're coming out a little tight and wanting to loosen up a little bit, and you're a little, shaky to start. I get it. They're human. So that could be part of it too. But yeah, Mind Your Manners in the 2-hole here, not a fan. Not a fan. The transition from Go into Mind Your Manners is... I'm just not a fan of it. I would much rather it be third, like flip-flop, make it Go corduroy Mind Your Manners, or just pull it out. Just take it out. And
I think I would have been okay
even push
with
it
Go
later in the
Corduroy,
set.
Hail, hail, Mind Your Manners.
Sure.
Because that's a good transition into Given to Fly there.
Yeah. Or how about, play Go Corduroy, Hail, hail, take a quick break, he does his little spiel, and then you break into Mind Your Manners.
Sure.
Like that I can take. I just, it's, when you hear it, I don't know I don't really know how else to describe it to my ear listening back to this.
Is it too common? Is it part of
They play Mind Your Manners second all the time at this point. They were playing Mind Your Manners second like every single show.
Almost every single show.
It's so
almost every single show.
I don't want to sound like that guy, but it's so basic. I don't know.
Is it more of that, or is it more performance based?
The performance is okay. I'm trying to remember what the scream I judge a lot of Mind Your Manners performances on his scream at the end.
Right.
Because if he hits that, it kind of seals it. For me, I think it was a pretty good one. So that kind of makes up for it. But big picture, if we're going to be nitpicky here, and I think this is a perfect show where we can be a little nitpicky as far as set placement. Because there is
Which
nothing...
is my favorite thing to do.
Sure, and there is, because like I said, there is nothing overly unique about this show. That would be that's one of my biggest criticisms of the show in the set, as far as set placement. I would not have put this here. Like I said, even if you want to put it like later in this first set, like in the middle of the first set, I don't care. I just don't like the transition and plopping it right between Go, Hail, hail, Given to Fly... or go corduroy, hail, hail, Given to Fly. It just doesn't mesh. Doesn't mesh for me, to my ear.
I care to agree with you. I think putting it after Hail Hail would have been cool. I'm fine with that. But, going to corduroy would have been amazing. And I think that I always mention on the show that corduroy is your holy shit, I'm at a Pearl Jam moment. I kind of broke down at that moment. I do remember just hearing corduroy. I got so excited that I started getting emotional, and that was the moment where I really felt like, wow, it's been so long since I fucking saw them, and have it happen, 2020 perhaps. It's probably going to happen again when I hear corduroy third or fourth or whenever they play it. That's probably going to be the moment I realize, holy shit, I haven't been here since fucking Boston of 2018.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, he does call back to the I can feel it, let me feel it kind of a line toward the end of the breakdown in corduroy going into the last, the solo there. Much like, obviously for just to throw it out there, MSG, May 21st, 2010, MSG2, the show that we just did, one of the most famous MSG moments probably for the band. So that was cool.
Here's another thing about this show. I feel like they're doing a lot of callbacks to their big moments, their big MSG past moments, instead of trying to make new MSG moments. They're trying with corduroy. They're trying, they say before do the evolution, they're saying, all right, it's about to get seismic up in here. Better Man, they do it 2 nights in a row. They're trying to get that energy from that Better Man that was at that night 2 show from 2010. really nitpicky, and these are all songs that usually get played anyway.
He plays the end again.
Yeah, like
Rats as usual.
Try something else. Right. Don't try to recreate what worked before. Try making something new work.
Sure.
I think that was a little bit.
I think it's an extremely valid criticism. I think it's certainly a valid point. That is a common thread through this entire show.
Yeah, especially for somebody that had been to, the last 3 MSG shows, and both Barclay Center shows. I had that big expectation and I kind of knew the trends at the time. So, we know what's up and we want something a little different, which they usually do for most places.
Yeah.
So, all right. So after that
gets
section,
us to low light now. So he takes a break after giving a fly, right?
Yes. Yeah. And, he says good evening and he says, fortunate to be back there after 6 years, talks about the history of the building a little bit, and then he thanks Billy Joel for letting them, for taking the night off and letting them stay, which is a really cool nod for anybody that knows. Billy Joel plays MSG. He has basically a residency there once or twice a month, I would say.
It's once a month.
Yeah, once a month.
But he also has started touring again now, like going to other cities and everything. So
Right. After that speech, you get low light here, and it's a little bit of a tide reversal where, you can get these songs in the middle of the set that usually go, 1, 2, 3. If you're doing a slow burn, you do get low light, and then after low light, that's the real surprise.
Yeah.
But low light sounds great, and they played this in the middle of the set a lot in 2010, so it's not like it's uncommon. But at this point, it had become a 1, 2, 3 type song. So, good Jeff backup vocals. This is great for kind of that cool down, going into even flow type thing.
Definitely. I think it's interesting that it's like a traditional opener reversed, in that you go from, what it would typically be like a release into low light. It becomes low light into release here, where they play release in the 7 hole, and then that goes into even flow. So that's weird. Interesting.
It was very interesting.
This one goes out to Jen and Tim tonight. Jen and Tim. It's your mom. With me. I see the world through the chair. Which way to go? We're closer. I see the world rocking towards the tide. I see the worst in the
I don't want to say it doesn't work, but it's not. It's good. It's cool, but it's not great.
I liked it.
It is what it is. It's cool. It's different.
I was really when they went into it, I felt like I kind of knew that it was coming, but again, I'm like, what the fuck is this doing here? Like, Release, you don't belong here. But also, you have to think that, again, Tenadelphia the night or a couple nights prior, they're playing Release middle of the set then.
Well,
so
that's a special circumstance.
I know, but they're probably thinking at that point, you know what? Hey, this worked really well coming from deep. I believe it was in the breaker fall. why don't we try doing this again? If we want to start the show off with the intro from Go, we want to bring back the magic of Release, and I believe it was dedicated to some people. So, you know, MSG, you get at the Garden, you get Release mid-set. Like, that's one of your holy shit moments for the night.
It's definitely one of the more unique moments of the show, that's for sure, because there really aren't many, and it's a very cool moment. And I think anytime you get Release 7th or in the middle of any set, like these days, is rare.
Yeah, I don't think it ever happens at all. You know, I'd have to go to the numbers, but I thought I checked before, and if it's not being used as an opener song, then it's probably 2 or 3. So, yeah, it's definitely one of the very few, like, hey, specific Madison Square Garden, only in the Garden type moments. You know, that's how I see this. So, very cool. Good version, you know, very passionate crowd. And, you know, if you watch the video on YouTube, the guys that are periscoping it are like, holy shit, we just got Release in the middle of the set. Can you believe it? So, yeah, that's a moment that you remember from this show. And that took us into Even Flow, which is, you know, it's good as usual.
Really good mic solo.
Really good mic solo, really good drum solo from Matt in this one as well.
Yep.
And you also have Ed throwing the mic to a fan in the crowd whose name is Kenneth, and he got to do the ending chorus on that, so that was pretty cool.
Indeed.
And at the end there, Ed says, hey, if we need somebody to fill in later, we know who can back us up. So that was a cool little moment. Yeah. And they'll call back to Kenneth later as well. That brings us into a little section here with I Got Shit in Hiding, and, you know, a little talking break, and then Rats and Down.
It was my first time getting I Got Shit, so that was
okay.
Cool.
Yeah, real energetic and crisp sounding for this. You know,
this is a cool little run here. This 4-song stretch here, 9 through 12.
Yeah.
So it's I Got Shit in Hiding, Rats, Down.
Yeah.
I Got Shit is... It's like a weird tempo song. Kind of goes up and down. You know, starts out slow, and it's kind of all over the place, and they do that dramatic ending where they hold out the chords and just kind of strum away really hard until the song ends, and that gets you into In Hiding. I think In Hiding is one of the more underrated and under-the-radar sing-along songs.
Yes.
That we don't really talk about as much as we probably should.
In Hiding is kind of a wild card where you don't really know how the crowd is going to respond to it. It's a bit of a deep cut off a yield. People don't, you know, depending on what kind of crowd it is, are they going to gravitate towards a song like this? And this crowd, I felt like they did. I feel like there was really good crowd participation there. So I'm happy to get that. And, you know, I think the only real thing there with this section, you know, Rats was dedicated to Dustin Hoffman, who was in the crowd, which I didn't realize. So that was kind of cool.
I did.
As he says, Enrique Rizzo or whatever his character name from
Midnight Cowboy, yeah.
Right. And, of course, obligatory Rats. That they have to do.
It's just become a New York staple for the band.
Yep.
It's just something they just have to play, it seems like, every time they come here. So that was cool.
Yep. And that's something I've grown at this point. I've grown to expect it. I know that they're going to do Rats at one of these two shows.
And I like Rats anyway, so I have no problem with it. So.
I had absolutely no problem with it, especially knowing how rare it is outside of these. But Down was like the one thing on this show that I'm thinking like, okay, if they do a Lost Dog, I've been seeing Down a real lot in the past couple of times that I went. And I want something like Sad. I want something, if not more rare, just something that I hadn't seen before. And it feels like Down is the common song of all the Lost Dogs. So it was, in this setting where I'm, thinking about it and really thinking about wanting to chase and thinking about what I should be getting to fill my card. Yeah, exactly. But as far as performance-wise, I don't really have anything performance-wise about any of these songs.
Ed forgets the lyrics throughout the show.
It's
become more and more common just in general, but in this show in particular, he's pretty forgetful. That's actually something we probably should mention. He misses a lot of lines throughout the show. I agree with you. Down is a song that I enjoy. I do like it. I love the little like reggae ska part at the end. Na, 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 na. Love that. Very cool.
I wish they would do the intro for it though. I wish they would do that. Da, na, 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 na. But they never do it live.
Yeah. Just one of those things that things change when you translate from the studio to live. But
of course,
just to put it in perspective, we've been to a lot of the same shows. This was the 88th time that it was played live. They've now played it 97, so they've played it 9 more times after this show, and this was only 2016, so it has become growingly, more and more common since it was released in 02, 03, whatever. Yeah. And we've seen it 2 more times after that, so I've seen it 4 times total now. This was the second of 4.
Okay, I think I've seen it 6 or 7, if I'm not mistaken.
But it just goes to show you, it's common. And they had already played it on the tour. It was played on April 9th. So
I would have liked Sad.
It's in the mix. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Just give me
something a little different.
Something new. Right.
I need something different.
They played Down, I believe, the first night of MSG in 2010, and I think they played Down at one of the Barclays Center shows.
They did. They played it night 2.
Yeah, so just know that. I think the band needs to understand that sometimes, and I think they do. They think they do a really good job of it, but also it's kind of they go by feel and what they're feeling and what they feel like the crowd is feeling, and for all of the serious collectors like we were, Down is not necessarily the one that we're clamoring for at this point. But again, we're different. I feel like both of us are different fans now than we were back then. So things may be different had it been 2019. So
things were different then, Randy. All is
different now. Motherfucker.
Tried to explain somehow.
I hope this works somehow. This is a cool moment here. You get this little intro, Dangerous Business. This is a song written by Paul Williams, who is the same guy who wrote like a bunch of Carpenter songs and The Rainbow Connection. And I believe this was a song that was used in a movie, and I don't remember the name to the movie. So if
it's another movie starring Dustin Hoffman.
Oh, okay. All right, there's the connection. That's awesome.
It says this song from the much maligned film. Maybe it's Ishtar. It says it's the song from the much maligned film Ishtar, starring Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman as 2 hapless singer-songwriters who, in the Hope Crosby style, find themselves soon on the road to Morocco. The believably bad songs were written by songwriter Paul Williams. There you go.
Huh. All right. There, and that's the intro for Wishlist.
Telling the truth can be dangerous business. Honest and popular don't go hand in hand. If you admit that you can play the accordion, no one will hire you in a rock and roll band.
pulling it all together.
I write
here.
wish list off at this point.
See, here's the thing. When I hear it live, I'm like, I don't really want to hear it when I'm there live, and that's how I'm thinking at this point. But when I hear it back on a bootleg, I'm like, wow, this is a damn good live song, and I should appreciate it a lot more.
It is. Listen, it's a good song. I like the ending.
It's not one of my
where they
favorites
kinda,
at all.
No, it's not one of my favorites, but I like it. But I like it better when it's slow. It's just too fast, man. It's too fast.
One I don't like slow. This is one I don't like slow.
No,
I think
just
slow is really boring for this song.
I would take the studio version over the live version these days every single time. Every single time.
Not for this one.
Agree,
not for
disagree.
me.
Yeah,
That's.
I can't. It's too fast. Sorry. And he messes up the words again. And it's just not. It's not good. I'm sorry.
Right.
I'll leave this one.
Yeah, I think it's it's a win for me. But yeah, he does mess up some of the lyrics, and then gets a little political at the end, which is also something that he's done at an MSG show before when Obama was running. He gets into basically fuck Ted Cruz, fuck Trump, and gets into the size of their penises, and then says that he feels the burn, and it's politically natured stuff that was very heavy in discussion at the time, and really we're about to get into it again. So if that's your thing, then
hopefully tour's coming.
Buckle up. Yep.
I think we can lump this next group of songs together pretty much. The
I
whole rest of the first set.
I would say like kind of the end. Yeah.
So it's Jeremy, Evolution, Why Go, Lucan, and Rearview Mirror. So that's 14 through 18 here.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't think I
standard.
have like anything to add here other than in Evolution he says the seismic thing, and he actually does a really good howl in the beginning of Evolution here, which is not that common anymore. He's kind of amped up at the end of Jeremy going into Evolution, and he lets out a big massive howl, which is pretty cool. But outside of that, I really got nothing to add except maybe one. I will say Lucan, disaster lyrically. He doesn't say any of the words. It's one of the mumble versions of Lucan.
Yeah.
There are times now where he will remember the words, or he'll like focus on the words and get them out in a coherent fashion. This is not one of those times. It is a mumbled disaster going into Rearview Mirror. And Rearview Mirror was good. Good way to end
Rearview Mirror
the first
was
set.
excellent. Yeah, I felt like this was a really fantastic Rearview Mirror. Jeremy, though, I have a little story on Jeremy. So the guy that was sitting next to me, there was some seat jumbling around, but when I went to my seat, this guy sitting next to me, I'm by myself, so whatever, I'm going to talk to whoever. And he kind of taps me. He's like, I just got my ticket today. Like, cool, man. Awesome. Sounds good. And he's like, cost me $300. Like, fantastic, dude. Have a swell time. He did not make a fucking peep until Jeremy. Swear to God, did not make a peep. Yep. And like
even for Even Flow?
Maybe a little bit, but he was by himself too. And he kind of like when Jeremy came on, he kind of did like this little fist pump, and he was like, "Yeah, my jam." I don't know if he was just kind of like playing it cool before that, but he seemed like the kind of guy that like wanted to brag that he was going to a Pearl Jam show and spent a lot of money to do it, and didn't know jack shit. So
teach their own.
Yep. If the guy ended up listening to a podcast, sorry I called you out, but sometimes we call these people out. It's for everybody else's entertainment. But yeah, this section it's pretty standard. You kind of lose Why Go a little bit. I feel like it's kind of forgetful in this section, especially with Lucan coming after it. I think that's a little bit of a weird transition when Why Go is usually a penultimate set song or a finishing set song.
Sure.
But Rearview Mirror saves the end of the set and has a real lot of energy, and really the ending to Rearview Mirror sounds fantastic in this one.
So
into the encore. Ed is bantering a lot, and he spots a Mets jersey in the crowd, which of course we're going to mention, and ask if the guy's wearing a Mookie Wilson jersey, and apparently the guy is wearing a Mookie Wilson jersey. So,
which is so awesome.
I know that
I love that.
He
the
had
Met fan
to
of me
say
is
Mookie
like,
Wilson.
Eddie talking about the Mets and Mookie Wilson in New York.
I know.
It's like, just love it.
You know, it's funny because he talks so much about the Cubs and he talks about the Mariners sometimes, and sometimes there are other teams that, you know, like maybe the Padres or something like that. But
the Bulls and the Bears and
he talks about the Red Sox a ton too. I think
Sox.
that's like his American League team outside of the Mariners. But he's never really talked about the Mets. I would love to sit there, have a conversation with him about what he thinks about the Mets and like what players he likes from the Mets, because I feel like that's a conversation he'd love to have, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just a baseball fan in general. I'm sure
That's
knows.
what I'm saying, yeah.
He knows the superstars and he knows all these guys and everything. He follows along. He knows what he's talking about.
And he also followed along as a kid too. So
Definitely.
you
I
know.
mean, he references all these old players all the time, you know, especially the
Right.
Wrigley shows and everything. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his favorite Jose Cardinal, his favorite Cub of all time. Yeah,
Afro.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, pretty cool that he always brings up, like, you know, the blue collar guys that he likes. So, you know, that's just a little baseball banter for you know, off season that we don't really get to see baseball stuff happening right now. So let's go Mets. We start off the encore here with the end. Has kind of an open mic night feel to it.
It definitely does. That's a very good way of putting it. And I was about to say, I don't know how to describe how this song, like the vibe of this performance, but that is the perfect way to sum up how he performs this song. And
right, and it's also the crowd too. You can hear like kind of the crowd talking, you know, in the YouTube version at least, you can hear the crowd kind of talking amongst themselves during it. So it's kind of like he's just playing in a crowded bar.
Yeah, and the end is a song that I think, and I think I said this in the MSG2 show for 2010 when we did it. It's one of those songs that I think is so underappreciated. It is such a beautiful song, lyrically and musically, that is so, it just flies under the radar. I mean, this is like a masterpiece for Eddie to me. I think that not a lot of people really think about. Rounding out Backspacer, not the most popular album in their discography by any means. One of the slowest songs they've ever written outside of maybe Around the Bend or something, you know, like an Off He Goes, which we'll get to in a moment. It's a really emotional song and is a really beautiful song. It is a bit depressing, and he even says that. He's like, all right, you know, we have a lot of high energy. We got to throw a downer in there. Might as well throw it in there now.
Yeah.
So he gets that in there, but performance-wise, yeah, it's very raw. You know, he's like, it's just him and his guitar.
He's so loose with
sitting in a bar, playing it in the corner for a small group of people, which is cool. I
think there's a verse where he comes in a little later, a little early on, or he repeats like a verse or something like that.
So he starts playing the second verse, but he's not singing it.
Right.
His vocals come in late on the second verse. That's what
it was. Yeah.
And it's it is the ability to channel that kind of energy, like you're playing it in a small club to a couple of different people, to the garden, is so cool. Which then, unless you have something else to add on the end, leads us right into the most pleasant surprise probably of the entire show. Which
I agree.
We were both there for the live premiere of this song at Wrigley in 2013. So along with Lightning Bolt, Future Days makes its debut in 2013, and we get it here. It has only been played 16 times ever.
Was it really that few?
Now?
Jeez.
And this was the last time they've played it. They have not played it since this night. So this was 16 out of 16. It was actually the third, so for us, I think it would be the same. We've seen it 3 times, and this was, of course, the third out of the 3 times. Right. So I think it was Wrigley, Barclays 2.
One of the Brooklyns,
Yeah, Barclays 2, and now this.
In this show.
So
here's my big takeaway from this song. So the other 2 times that we saw it, especially the one other time with Boom, Boom is playing in a style that sounds like a church organ, which is not typically how it's played on the album. But this version has like this very rich New York, Billy Joel, Neil Simon play kind of feel to it.
It really does. It does.
Yeah, it's really cool
it's
sounding.
It's different. It's like so different.
If I ever were to lose you, I'd surely lose myself. Everything I have found here, I've not found by myself. Try and sometimes you'll succeed to make this man of me. Oh, my stolen missing parts, I've no need for anymore. I believe, and I believe, 'cause I can see our future days of you and me.
It doesn't even sound like a Pearl Jam song.
No,
honestly, it sounds like a cover. The way it's played.
And,
when you listen to the album,
Matt's doing a couple things on that too. That,
yes,
it's a different rhythm to it as well.
Yep. The drum style it's like jazzy. It's just it's really good. I mean,
this
really,
is really
underrated. Really, like one of the best moments of the entire show. And I can't believe we're saying that about Future Days, but it's true.
I know.
It's really true.
Not either of our favorite songs.
Definitely not. But when you play the way that it's played on the album, and it's like the standard run-of-the-mill version, it does not stand out. It's kind of boring. It's sappy. It's...
And
he even says, he goes, I wrote this for my... he's like, I wrote this for my wife. Like, okay, that's fine. I have no problem with that. I don't need to hear that live every time, which they don't play that often, obviously. But when you play it like this...
also ending album songs back-to-back.
And I said this to you, these songs are like cousins. Or like brothers or sisters, whatever you want to call it. They're related. They round out the albums, back-to-back albums, and they're both like sentimental, kind of sappy, emotional songs.
Right.
And I love the end. Well, I like the end a lot more than Future Days, but I would take Future Days a lot more often at shows if they played it like this.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I mean, it's good stuff.
Some more stuff in this encore here. This is really where I become a spoiled brat. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I've seen the end. I've seen Future Days a bunch. And then I get Off He Goes and Footsteps. And these are two of my top 5 favorite songs. So this is how much of a brat I am. I'm thinking to myself, this is the rare songs that we're getting tonight. This is it. I got nothing. There's nothing else. Everything else that's going to happen tonight is going to be pretty common. And this is where my mood goes from like pretty happy in the first set, like that, we got a good performance, but now I'm just like, even 2 of the songs that I absolutely cherish the most, I'm just like, no, give me something like a man of the hour that I haven't heard before. I'm being really, really selfish at this point.
Yeah. I did not have the same perspective as you on this night, and we've mentioned that. So from your point of view, I get it. Especially, if you've seen these songs, it's and you want to try to be a little bratty about it. I get it. I'm not saying I would be, but I get where you're coming from. But for me, in this moment, I had never seen Off He Goes. So this is my personal debut for Off He Goes. So that was cool.
That's fair.
And Footsteps is awesome. One of my favorite songs. Absolutely love it. As soon as that harmonica kicks in and like gives you chills every time. It was so good. Such a good performance. They nail it.
I'm not saying that I didn't. Yeah, I'm not saying that I.
No, I know you're not saying that you're not saying the performance was bad. You're just saying literally like the song selection.
Yeah, from my mindset at the time. And it's not even like I go into this looking at it in a different perspective that, on a bootleg, I'm like, off he goes in footsteps. This is fantastic. But, from the time, all I can think of was just like I wanted something that I didn't get and I was being selfish.
Yeah,
so,
you're ready for your like game-changing moment, mind-blowing
Exactly.
moment here, something that's going to make the show
A holy
memorable
shit.
and be like, oh my God, this is actually happening moment right now. I got it. I understand.
Like Brooklyn Night 1, the only, it was pretty standard. I kind of compare these two shows together, but that had Oceans and Sleight of Hand.
Oceans, yep.
Like, really songs I hadn't seen before or since. So, those were big moments for me. So here's what I would like to pose to the audience. Write in to liveonfourlegspodcast@gmail.com if you've had kind of your moment like where, you're, 10 to 15 shows in and you get to a show and you're like, man, they're not playing anything new for me, and this is kind of a buzzkill, even though this is a good show. If you had that moment, tell us your story, want to hear it, and I think a good percentage of fans would probably say that, they are chasers, self-admitted chasers, and that, maybe they have been to a show where they were expecting more and they didn't quite get it. So if you had that moment, let us know what show it was. Let us know what your experience was. liveonfourlegspodcast@gmail.com. We'd always love to hear from you. If you have anything else from this show or other shows that we've covered in the past that you'd like to talk about, send us a line and we'd be happy to talk to you. So, continuing on with the encore, I was just incredibly jaded and such a jerk at this point. I called my shot and I said right after Footsteps, I'm like, they'll probably do Chloe Dancer Crown of Thorns. I said to the guy next to me who I started talking to a little bit, who said the same thing, that he thought that Sad was a better choice than Down. And I'm like, Chloe Crown here. And because that was another one that I had been seeing a real lot around this time.
Ding, ding.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, fuck, I ruined it for myself.
I liked it.
Yeah,
I thought it was good.
look, I see this one a lot, so I guess to me, again, like, yeah, it's a rare song in the grand scheme of things.
Well, I don't think
but
you've seen it
seeing
since then.
I have not seen it since then, but
Actually,
around
Chloe
this time,
has not been played since this night, and Crown of Thorns
wow.
has only been played once since this night.
and that was in Seattle. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think I would think a little bit differently about it now, but that 2013 tour, I think I saw it 2 or 3 times, and that's including the
Barclays
Wrigley
Night
show.
1.
Barclays Night 1, Wrigley, and Hartford.
Right.
They played it. So, like, I've had my fill of
Yeah,
it
you've had your
in
fill.
a very short amount of time. So, not that it was bad. It's very emotional, and obviously, John says this all the time. They usually play these songs whenever they're in a building that they feel like Andy would have loved playing in, and Madison Square Garden, of course, that's the one right there. So, it's significant and meaningful,
and it's good. I thought they did a good job. I thought it was a good performance of both too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I called my shot on this one, too. I said, all right, we need something a little more uplifting. How about an Unthought Known? And, again, it is kind of predictable, and I'm being a little bit of a brat here, of course, but, it's good. It's a good decision, and I think the predictability of it is not a bad thing. It's just you look at all these sets and you kind of figure out routine sometimes, even within all of the changes that they make night in, night out. You kind of can see where the ebbs and flows are going to be. And Unthought Known, while it might be predictable, it works really well here. So, I think this is another one where the lyrics were just, he sings the swallowed whole line, I think 2 or 3 times. So, mm-hmm. It's it's not his best performance on it, but it's not a terrible performance by any standard.
It's a song that, I don't know. I enjoy it. It's fine. I don't need it every show. They play it a ton, man.
They do.
I mean, they play it
and
a lot.
And I like it. I like hearing it. I think it's got a lot of positive energy to it.
I mean, it came out in 2009. They played it 132 times already.
Look, it's one of the ones that stuck around from it, and there's a good reason. You get people clapping, you get people singing along. It's got a lot of positive energy. It's good, but I think your probably thinking on like, this is pretty standard par for the course kind of set basic.
Yeah.
Right?
100%. And it's in that point in the show, like that, the encore part where you're breaking away from the slower. It's like this changes the mood. Chloe Crown of Thorns is like, it's like they're gonna stand up when they play it, but it's still like you're in this mindset where you're kind of like, I don't know, you're still related to the toned down part of like the acoustic part of the encore. The Unthought Known is in a hole where it's like you could have plugged like a Why Go in here or a Given to Fly in here,
right?
And you get the upbeat mood back in. Unthought Known kind of fills that hole here to me,
right?
And just to give you the numbers, Unthought Known 132 times total is far and away the most played song off of Backspacer. Got Some is second, 111.
Oh. Just
Breathe is third, 110. And Unthought Known has been played 60.6% of the shows since it was debuted.
That's, wow. I mean, that speaks volumes to the song and, how people have reacted to it since it came out from Backspacer. So this is one of the few that, like, yeah, I don't want to hear it every single night, but give it to me once every 3 shows and I'll be really happy.
Yeah.
It'll be, it's a standard part of the set now, and I'm fine with it. And we'll get to another song in a little bit that kind of fits the same mold. But as we continue on here, here's one that doesn't make the set and hasn't made the set since or before. Ed is kind of saying that this is a birthday request for a friend, and the friend says that he's not as good as this singer, and then Ed's like, well, I'm no Lou Rawls, and he does a little Lou Rawls imitation there. But he's got the baritone going, so he's on par.
It's a funny little speech that he gives.
Yeah, and it gets into something totally unexpected, doing the Doobie Brothers taking it to the streets. Yeah, Ed pulling off his best impersonation. What'd you think?
It's good. I like it a lot. I remember my friend really loved it. He's like, wait, they're playing the Doobie Brothers? He was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I can't believe it either. Like, I've never seen this before. And yeah, I mean, you said it, we've never seen it since, and I don't think we'll ever see it again.
OTO.
This was a one-time only thing, and it was cool. They only played like a minute 45, 2 minutes of it.
Not very long.
It's like a verse, chorus. Like you get like 2 verses and 2 choruses, and then that's it. But I think what's more notable is the transition.
Oh, the
you
transition
go
is
from
great.
taking it to the streets into whipping.
Taking it to
Never in a million years. I mean, it sounds like something you'd make up like to say, oh, you know what, I'm gonna make a set, you know what, just for shits, I'm gonna say they're gonna play "Taking It to the Streets" by the Doobie Brothers tonight, and then right after that, I'm gonna follow that up with a rousing rendition of "Whipping," when at this point it hadn't been played in 17 shows until this night. So yeah, this is quite a bizarre turn here in the middle of the first encore, but "Whipping" is good, and then that gets you into the Better Man. So this is Vitalogy back to back here, "Whipping," Better Man.
Yep.
Little Save It for Later tag in there. Pretty standard performance of Better Man, and nothing. Yeah, it doesn't quite capture the same magic as the previous Garden show that we've dwelled on endlessly. Porch, hashtag I hate Fast Porch. It is terrible. Please go back to, or a Slow Porch rather. Hate Slow Porch. Please go back to faster normal 10 version of Porch, please. And then that rounds out the first encore, and it's a pretty lengthy jam there at the end of Porch. Tons of riffing and feedback and drumming
I think the Porch at the end, look, Eddie's running around and he's getting up on the amps and he's getting into the crowd and stuff like that. I think it's fun, this is, look, for all of the criticism that we have of Slow Porch and Riffy Porch or whatever you want to call it, once they get into like the real meaty section of the bridge, I think Porch can sound really good still. While it doesn't have that stage diving mentality that it used to. It could still, it still felt like a party, and you got the orbs going back and forth that they're swinging. You got to have a garden party here, and I feel like this really felt like it was.
It did, yeah. And they still have the globes or the orbs at this point, so that adds to the fun. And that gets us into Encore 2 and a little play to the back here.
Yeah. Elderly Woman. I got nothing really on Elderly Woman. I got nothing on a lot of these Encore 2 songs. I think they're it's a very standard choice.
I'll make 2 points here. 2 quick points. One being that in Elderly Woman, the modern versions of Elderly Woman, Ed does the part toward the end of the song, the way our hearts and he goes high in that last line there. Every time now when he nails it here.
Hearts and thoughts they fade. Take over.
There's sometimes where his voice kind of gives out these days, where it's so high that if he just doesn't hit it perfectly, it's like his voice cracks and kind of gives out. Not here, so that was good. He hits it like solidly, right in tune, right in key. It's perfect. And
what do you think about Lightning Bolt being in the second encore?
That was my second point. So Lightning Bolt here, same thing as the second night, right? The second encore, the second song is Lightning Bolt, right?
Yeah, that's
so
the one thing
weird.
We don't bring up about this show because I think we're going to bring it up when we do night 2 in a month.
Yeah, right. I didn't want to bring it up too much because there's a lot of similarities between the two shows, but this is one I think we have to mention because it is so bizarre, and I just don't get it. It's not an encore song, at least not a second encore song.
I think where you placed Unthought Known is the place that you would place Lightning Bolt if you're putting it in an encore part of the set.
You could have flip-flopped them.
Sure. And it would have had the same feel to it. But again, you're it's like for the fan that's chasing a little bit, you kind of think that in the encores, you're going to get something a little different. You're going to get something a little rare when you get Lightning Bolt. That's you're pulling out your common card there, and it's a little bit disappointing when they do that. But look, performance-wise, I love the song. I got nothing against the song, but, as far as being a chaser and wanting to hear certain stuff and wanting them to mix it up, it was disappointing that they didn't mix it up that much.
Yeah.
That's So unfortunately, that's what happens when you go to a bunch of shows. You're going to get similarities between the many that you've gone to. So
it just feels so out of place. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
a little bit.
You're talking like elderly, like Take It Out. Like, let's put it that way. Take It Out. Elderly woman, black, alive, rockin', indifference. Like, doesn't that just sound better to you on paper?
From sing along to very upbeat to kind of slow sing along.
It's just all over the place. It's just all over the place. Like, you can get away with Black and Alive back to back.
Sure.
Like, I have no problem with that.
I think that's
Two
a really
classics.
good combo.
Like, it's fine. But like, you throw Lightning Bolt before it, and then you just had the sing along with elderly woman. It just Ed was a little off with the set placement in this one.
Yeah.
But I don't really have anything to add for the rest of the show.
No, look, it's
cool getting
Black
Indifference.
is-
It was only the second time I had Indifference at this point. The other one was to close out Barclays Night 1, so that was cool. Free World's fine. Black was really good.
Free World had a really good energy to it.
Yeah, just Mike, I mean, absolutely destroys Black at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, just he goes insane. Like, great example of a good Black solo for Mike there at the end. I mean, just like out of this world. Really good.
This version of Black, I feel like, sometimes where you get kind of like deeper emotional Blacks. This was very, come on, everybody, let's sing along with us instead of like let's focus on a mood.
Yep.
I think I like Black when it's a little bit more emotional.
Yeah.
When it has, like when they're tapping into something sort of deep. This one was just like, let's play it and let's have everybody sing along, which is okay, which is fine, but it doesn't stand out from the pack.
Totally get your
as
point.
much.
100%.
Yeah. So, and the rest of the set, it's it's your bread and butter,
standard, very standard.
Alive, Free World, Lights Go Up, Indifference, and
really good crowd singing actually on Indifference.
It's fantastic crowd.
Yeah,
the crowd was great all night. I got nothing against the crowd at all. And Rockin' in the Free World had just a ton of energy to it. It's just, again, how many times are you going to see Rockin' in the Free World before you see something else that's a little less common than that, like even a sonic reducer or something else in that spot would have been cool. But that's, again, we're being picky on things that usually are very common, so it's really not a big deal. But that's the show. Top three. Let's do our top three. What do you got?
It's a good question. I don't know. Like the art, I'm just gonna name them. I mean, the go feedback in the beginning is such a cool, unique moment that I feel like I have to mention it because it really caught me off guard when it happened, and I really love it. Listening back to it every time I come across that version, I feel like I just gotta listen to it. Future Days has got to be in there. I feel like I gotta put Future Days in there. I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't put it in there. That would be a second one, and man, I don't know. It's just like it is such a hit-filled show, and such a standard, basic show that nothing really like stands out as much to me. I mean, Taking It to the Streets was cool. I mean, it's like something really different. You're never going to see that again. So I guess that maybe.
Yeah, that's.
I mean,
that's
I
fair.
feel weird that I'm struggling this hard to try to get 3 moments.
But a lot of what we talked about today was stuff kind of
is how there
it was
are
very
not a lot of
technical.
moments. Yeah,
it was very technical.
So I guess I got to
performance.
stretch a little bit here. I mean, getting I Got Shit for the first time, that was good. Honorable mention.
Yeah.
So
I think for me, I have Go and Future Days is absolutely two of the top, and then probably number 3. I think it would be Go, number 1, Future Days number 2, and then 3 for me. I really like Dangerous Business into Wishlist. I think that was a really fun, good moment, and I personally liked Wishlist from this show. So that's what I say. Now let's rate the thing. Yeah, how many? This is going to be a really tough one. I've been thinking about it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I feel like
I don't know what you come up with.
I feel like I kind of have to like view the two shows as a tandem, because it's like you go to the shows back to back, night 1 and night 2, and it's like you can't help but like relate them to each other.
Right. These two especially, because they're so similar.
And there's a lot of similarities, but the things that are different between them are really different, and they are what set them apart. And I don't want to get too deep into night 2 and mention a lot of specifics. I remember so many people talking about how amazing night 1 was at the pre-party the second day, and it was. But again, like I said in the beginning, it wasn't the set list. It was just like...
We've had people write into us and say that show was one of the best performances they've ever seen.
Yeah, because they were so on fire. Like, the performances were all very, very good. They're very solid performances of almost every song. Like, outside of Ed forgetting the lyrics on a number of occasions, like, every performance was great. But, like, the moments in the second night, like, the little rarities and things that we'll get into when we get to that show, and that's what sets it apart. So it's like the set list is better the second night. So like in that regard, like I feel like I want to rate the second night higher and not the first night. But like the first night's performances were still so good that I'm like torn. I don't know.
It's
like
really tough
like
decision.
8 maybe, like an 8.
Okay, that's fair.
I feel like that's a fair assessment, because it's like the fact that you don't have any of these mind blowing MSG mid-tour moments based on all the other things that were happening in the previous shows. It's like it's a pretty big downer. Like I feel like you're really let down in that regard, and you've harped on that and how you were being a brat and everything. But,
pretty much.
I think as a chaser, and if you're looking at it as like a rarity collector show, you're going to be disappointed. But if you look at it from what is like, it's like I said to you before, it's like if this was a festival show but longer.
Yeah.
It's like they're playing a lot of songs that you'd get at a festival with a couple little cool, unique things thrown in.
Right.
And it's a little more fleshed out, and like all the performances are awesome.
I think
so.
We've said
I think
before
like an 8 to an 8.5, I think is fair.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that range.
I feel like we've said before with other shows, especially in 2016, like we said, maybe it was the Tampa one that I said this about. I'm like, you could take this set list and performance and put it in Madison Square Garden. You wouldn't know the difference. And I would say that this is the opposite. I think that you can put this show in Tampa and this would be a really good Tampa show, but it's not necessarily an amazing Garden show.
Right.
In my, that's just in my opinion. But, half of me wants to give it the spoiled brat rating, which is kind of low, and the other half wants to give it the very solid bootleg re-listen rating, which is better. I'm gonna have to go 7, and I think that's pretty fair based on how much of a chaser and how negative I was coming out of this show. I probably gave it a 4 coming out of it, and listening to it back, I think it gained some redemption for me. There was some cool moments with, a mid-set release and, Go that we talked about in future days that I was able to appreciate when hearing it a second time around. And this is not something that I've gone back. I didn't even buy this bootleg when it came out. So this is really the first time that I've really sunk my teeth into it. So, there are things that are really good about this show. It's solid. There's nothing wrong about it. It's just, I'm still in spoiled brat mindset a little bit. So that's holding me back from giving it, a B grade instead. I think a 7 is pretty good considering how negative I've mentioned that I was while I was in the stands at the show. So
the only thing that I would add is it's the kind of show, and I feel like a lot of the shows that I've done, on the podcast, or at least the ones that I've been to, it was the kind of show where when you experience it in real time, like when you're there, it was a lot more enjoyable and a lot better than when you listen back to it.
Yeah. I think we had that last week
what I mean?
With London.
Like you're standing there and you're like enjoying the moment, you're in the moment, and like you're surrounded by people that are loving it, and it's like it really, you were like engulfed in the energy and everything, and like you listen back to it and it's like it's just good.
Yeah,
it's
you
just
want something
okay. It's nothing that is going to draw me back to listening to this bootleg at any time soon. but it's like
No.
if I had it on shuffle, like all of my songs, and like something from this performance came up, like one of these moments we've talked about, I would definitely want to listen to it, if that makes sense.
You can pick certain performances from this show. That's the same thing we said about the London show from last week. You can pick certain performances and say, like, this was really good, this was really fantastic. As far as listening to it as a full bootleg,
As a whole, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that, we kind of have to do this on the show because we can direct you to the bootleg or the YouTube versions, but we can't say, hey, it's not a Broadway show, like, hey, go see this live. It's not that. So you can't get that set list or that moment back. So,
Sure.
That's pretty much where we stand with it. And, I think it had a little bit redemption for me, but again, it's not one that's going to be raising the roof, or I'm not going to try to listen to it anytime soon. So, all right, let's clean up here. And again, mention on Patreon that we had a bunch of announcements yesterday within mentioning the Patrons Day. We mentioned some things that we're going to be doing in 2020. So if that's something that you're interested in, head on over to our Patreon account at patreon.com/live4legs. Remember to vote. Remember to vote for our show of the decade. I believe 2013 or 2014 is probably out right now, so you're going to want to vote and vote for your favorite shows on that. That's all we have for you for today. Again, go vote. And anything else?
No, I'm all
see
set.
Buckley's band whenever they play.
Yeah, Remora. Like, if you want, like us on Facebook, REMORA, or shoot us a message, or me a message, the show a message, whatever. I'll share you the Spotify link if you want to listen. Our debut EP, Basement Tapes, is out now
There you go.
on Spotify.
Hit it up. Head on over.
Love it.
All right. This may be the end. We're here, but not for much longer. And although we may be parting ways, I miss you already, and I miss you always. For Randy and Buckley and the penultimate MSG show. We got one more left in a full year of doing 10 MSG shows. Can you believe that we got through them all?
No.
It is kind of amazing. Yeah. So we'll get to one final one in December, the Night 2 show from this past year, 2016. And, that is it for this show. So we will be back next week. See you then.
Later.